Okay, welcome. I hope that we're recording now live. Are we recording, Dina?
I think we're recording, Vicky. Let's go.
Okay, I see a little live up in the corner. That looks awesome. This is my first Google Hangout Live. So excited to have Dina Eisenberg joining me today. Dina Eisenberg, JD, is the author of the Essential Fiverr Buyer's Guide and an expert on Fiverr. She's a speaker, a business coach, and a mentor, and she's known as the GPS for consultants, coaches, and entrepreneurs who want to repurpose their best-selling ebooks, online courses, and podcasts, and to also find the best virtual help to monetize their knowledge. She's also the CEO and founder of Info Product Doctor today, and I'm so excited to have her today. Welcome, Dina.
Thank you, Vicky. I'm really excited to be here with you. You know you're one of my favorite people to talk to, and we're going to talk about my favorite topic, Fiverr.
Yes, we are. And I'm really excited to bring you here today. I have a question for you though. In your title it says JD. And I wasn't sure about what that was, and I just want to make sure that everyone's on the same page. Tell me a little bit about your background.
Sure, sure. So JD means Juris Doctorate, which means I'm a doctor of laws. I started my legal career practicing a very arcane, kind of painful kind of law. I was prosecuting doctors for sexual misconduct. And while it was really wonderful work, I had a fire in my belly for it. It kind of burned me out. And so then I started my online business, and I've been online for a number of years now.
Very, very nice. So you made the transition from being in the courtroom to being online.
Yeah, so the courtroom by way of corporate America, I was a senior vice president and corporate ombudsman for Bank of America for a few years. Another job where lots of interesting things happened and sort of wore me out.
Yeah.
And so then I really decided I wanted to take my business online and start coaching people around repurposing their content, articles, speeches so they could have an income stream.
Great, great. So tell me a little bit about your background with Fiverr. How did you get involved with the platform? And tell us a little bit about it in case people aren't familiar.
Yeah, happy to do it. So Fiverr is an online marketplace for creative services and professional services starting at $5. It was founded by two lawyers in Israel in 2009, and since then it's actually garnered about $50 million in venture funding. So it's a real company. I got started on Fiverr because I was doing some graphic work and I had a VA who was doing the work for me for a while, and we sort of diverged. You know, I loved her style. She was very reliable. We got along great. But eventually we got to a point where she wasn't able to do the modern graphic style that I wanted, and I realized it was not the best idea to rely just on one person in my business. So I started looking at outsourcing, and I went on to guru.com, if you remember that site. I've been on Odesk and Elance, but when I found Fiverr, I sort of fell in love, I suppose you could say.
That's
Um,
great. And I have a question. In your book, you mentioned your motto early on, try, fail, learn, and grow. Now, Fiverr can be pretty frustrating at first if you don't know how best to use it. Is that why you wrote the book, The Essential Fiverr Buyer's Guide?
You know, I wrote the book for a really kind of interesting reason. I was at a state conference, large conference, and you know, I get a little shy at those kinds of things, so I was listening to a lot of the conversations around me, and I heard these two women talking. And one woman was saying, you know, I'm really tired of social media. It takes up all my time. I don't have time to post. I don't know where to find the images. I'm just going to find somebody to do it for me. And the other woman said, well, don't use Fiverr. And she was really adamant about it, and she started running through all these things. You know, it's a scam. You won't get anything back. People will just take your money. And honestly, Vicky, it made me mad. So I tapped them on the shoulder, and I said, hey, do you use Fiverr? And of course the answer was no. And so that just let me know that lots of entrepreneurs and small business owners were losing out on the opportunity to have help in their business because of these rumors. And it felt like I could do something about that. And so that's why I wrote the book. And really it's a guide for people to explain exactly what Fiverr is, to explain how to use the platform effectively so that you always have somebody there to help you do something in your business.
That's excellent. So you really found an opportunity. You were at this large conference and you kind of eavesdropping and overheard people having the conversation about Fiverr. So you found this great opportunity, and good for you that you came out with this book. I'm so proud of you. Um, in your book, you call Fiverr a secret tool. Now,
Mhm.
what is that?
You know what? It is a secret tool. One, because there just isn't enough awareness about it. Um, Solopreneurs, authors, coaches, brick and mortar folks, lawyers, all can be using Fiverr for different parts of their business. They just aren't aware of it. And the reason it's kind of the secret is, other part of the secret is people don't realize how many different kinds of services you can actually get on the Fiverr platform. Now, normally, you and I think of visual marketing right away. That's your thing. You wrote the book on virtual marketing.
I did.
But other folks might not have a broadened horizon about Fiverr. So I just want to mention a couple of different things that you can do on Fiverr, if that's okay.
Sure.
So, of course you can do the visual marketing thing. So you can have a header made for your website. You might have a course or workshop coming up, so maybe you're going to get a graphic designed for that. You want to increase your traffic 12%. You get an infographic made on Fiverr. And if for whatever reason you feel like, I don't even know what to put in an infographic, there's somebody on Fiverr who actually will do the research for you, and then you just turn that over to another Fiverr provider who will actually create the presentation. Do you have your terms and conditions done on your site? Probably not. Most people don't. And that's okay, because there's somebody on Fiverr who will actually do that for you. You can get consulting on Fiverr. There are lawyers and there are accountants who will help you, think about your business financials on Fiverr. So it's really vast. That's why I think it's kind of a secret tool, because sometimes we think, oh, I can't afford this professional. Well, yeah, you can. You can on Fiverr.
Right, right. That's excellent. And you touched upon different types of tasks that you might have that you want a professional to do for you on Fiverr. But what kinds of providers out there? And do you have like a knowledge of what the top categories may be? Talk to
I,
me little bit about that, the broad,
okay.
vast array of professionals on Fiverr.
Cool. So let's just get our terminology down. Tasks on Fiverr are called gigs, and there are about 3 million gigs to choose from. And I know we'll probably talk a little about search later on, but let's go through the gig categories. Although there are 100 gig categories, Fiverr really does a good job of narrowing it down to about 8. And let me run through them. It's graphic design, online marketing, advertising, writing and translation, video and animation, music and audio, programming and tech, business advice, and then the ever popular other. Now, all of these are the top level categories. If you're on the Fiverr platform and you see it just below the black bar, you'll see these categories again. If you click on them, there's a drop down menu, and then you see an even greater number, a subset of each of those categories. So really you can narrow down your search quite a bit.
Sure, that's excellent, and that gives us a little bit better idea of the different types of professionals there are. A lot of them are very visual, but there are a different subset within each of those, right?
Absolutely. I've had my sales pages written for me on Fiverr. I've had translation done on Fiverr. So it's not just the visual stuff, and that's something I want people to be aware of. Just about anything that you can think of in your business, you can find somebody on Fiverr to do. I have a new client that just came on board, and again with the social media, she doesn't like to keep it up, and so we're going to find her a provider who's going to set up her Pinterest account and select all the images, create the posts, and then consistently post for her.
Yeah, that's absolutely a great help because it's not always that easy to stay on top of social media,
No.
especially producing the content and then sharing it in social media. There's two very different things. So it's great that you're helping her find somebody on Fiverr to do that. Now, how does a buyer decide what they want to outsource?
One of my favorite questions. So, one, I just want to encourage people to outsource, period. It's good for you. You'll love it. Um, I have a strategy around my outsourcing, and I'm going to just step right through it. It's a three-part strategy, and I want you to imagine a pyramid, like pyramids. Okay, the bottom is the broad part, the middle is a little smaller, and then there's the small part at the top. When I'm thinking about doing outsourcing, I try to think of my tasks as in three different levels. Kind of like renovating. I renovated my house, so I really like using renovation analogies. And so, if you're getting cabinets from Home Depot, there's the ready-made cabinets you get in the store, right? You can't change anything about them. You're just buying them and bringing them home. That's when you're delegating and you're not changing a thing. And that's when I would say you would use Fiverr, right? When you just want the product at the end. We just need some hands to help you do the task. And it's on the bottom because I use that the most, right? Next level up is when I want kind of a thinking partner. I have tasks that have to get done, and I want them to be a little custom, right? So my cabinets are going to have special handles now that I pick out. And in that instance, I'm probably not going to use Fiverr. I'm going to use one of the other platforms like Elance or Odesk. And by the way, those two merged. So they're essentially the same company now. At the very top of the pyramid, the smallest part, is what I call custom or bespoke. So that's you going to the cabinet maker and saying, come into my kitchen, measure everything up, and make exactly what I want only for me, right? It's tailored especially to you. And when you're going to outsource there, that's work you're going to use a virtual assistant for. And maybe you'll find the virtual assistant on Elance or Odesk or Fiverr, but probably you're going to hire your own virtual assistant when you want really, really custom work that's just for you. So it's the three levels. It's either, off the rack, semi-custom, or bespoke, made just for you. And so that's how I think about my outsourcing with the tasks. And I sort of think of it this way. If I'm going to use the outcome for a long time, or it's going to impact my brand significantly, or it's going to go all over the world, then I really want to be using sort of the semi-custom, right? Because I want to make sure I have some control and it's just for me, or the bespoke. Now, if I'm just getting, I don't know, a button, I need a new button, then it's Fiverr because I don't need to have that custom. And, it's going to be something that I'm going to use for 2 weeks in a workshop or something, and then I'm not going to use it again. So that's sort of how I think of my outsourcing strategy. I think, do I want off the rack, semi-custom, or bespoke? And how important is this item to my business? Is it going to impact my brand, or is it going to be sort of a throwaway?
Okay, that's a great, great strategy. Not something that I thought of based on how customized you need the work done. So I just want to make sure that I understand correctly. If you really need something custom and you may want somebody's input more, you may work with somebody on Elance or Odesk, or now it's merged into one. What would it be?
I think they both kept their own names. Their
Okay.
companies merged, but they kept their brands.
Right, right. So if it's more custom, then you're going to need more of a virtual assistant, somebody maybe from Odesk or Elance. But if you just have a task quick, you know what it needs to be done with it, then you would use Fiverr.
Exactly. That's exactly it.
That's great. So now that we've talked about the different types of uses for a provider on Fiverr, tell me what the best way is to actually write a gig request, and a gig meaning the task at hand. So
Sure.
you have a system in your book. I read it. I did read the book,
Thank
and
you.
including explaining your request clearly and briefly. So can you touch a little bit more on this for our listeners today?
I'd love to, because this is the place where people make the most mistakes in writing their gig request. It's simple, but there is a little bit of a process you need to follow. First, I like to remind people that the person that you're writing to, the provider, is a small business owner just like you. So the way that you would want someone to approach you is how you should approach that provider. In writing the gig request, you want to not write it on the platform on Fiverr. You want to write it on Word so that you have a chance to play with the words and get it right. And what you want to formulate is an opening, and in the opening what it says is, "Hi, I'm Dina, and I own infoproductdoctor.com." Then you're going to tell them what it is that you need. Hey, I'd love for you to create a Google Plus cover for me because I have a new promotion coming up. And I always try to explain the context to which I need the task or the service for. So the more understanding you can give the provider, the better they can satisfy your needs. Then I talk about the details in terms of what I want. So I provide an example. And if you have Jing, the screen capture program, that's a great way to give the provider a visual image of what you want. It's important, though, to say that you want them to be inspired, not plagiarized, right? So that they know that you want something that's original and unique to you. And so in that part, you're offering any details. So here's the example of what I want. Here are the colors I want. Here are the colors I absolutely do not want. And you have to give both sides. You have to say what you want and what you don't, because the provider cannot read your mind. They won't be able to guess. You have to tell them. You also have to make it clear if you have any deadline and that you want them to do things legally. So if they're using a photo for you, you want to make sure you remind them to get the license for the photo credit, so that later on when you're using that, you're not going to be in trouble. And then I sort of end with letting them know I'm going to be around. And I recommend that, if you're putting out a gig request, you want to stay close to your email for the next 24 or 48 hours in case the provider has any questions and they want to get back to you. And so that's the step of the gig request. You want to open by saying who you are, tell them what you want, give them all the details, and let them know that you're going to be around in case they have a question.
That's great, Dina. That's great advice. And I actually have a little story. I used, and I still use, a provider that I trust and I've been working with for my podcast. My podcast intro and outro. I wanted to have a professional voiceover. Do my intro. I had the music and I was okay to edit using Audacity and doing my own podcast, but I needed somebody to kind of do the voiceover for me because I do have a little Brooklyn accent sometimes, I'll tell you. It will come out. Can you hear it, Dina?
Oh, my. No.
Forget about it. It's just me. It's just no, I just wanted to have a real professional because sometimes I can't control it. I can't control it all the time. So I wanted a professional, but she was excellent in doing her description of what she offers because she tells you exactly what she will need to know. The tone of her voice, are there any words that you want her to specifically, point out? What is the mood? Is there a certain accent that you might want? So it's all. I was lucky that I had a provider asking me for that information, but that's great advice that you just gave about what information you need to give to your provider.
So let me just follow up on what you just said. What you read was her gig instructions, and that is so critical. If you put up a gig and you select a provider, but you don't respond to their gig instructions, your gig doesn't start. So, you have to make sure that you read the gig instructions, you provide everything that the provider wants, and that you send it back right away. Otherwise, you delay your project.
Right, absolutely. It's just like having an assistant. If you didn't give them all the tools that they needed to get started, then they certainly couldn't do any, project for you the right way that you would expect it to be done. So let me ask you a question, Dina, because we spoke about being happy, with a provider, and I certainly am happy with mine. But sometimes there are providers that may just go the wayside, and I've just wanted to kind of have you talk a little bit about how people can have their minds eased about working with Fiverr, and how can they trust? How can they trust?
That is the second most popular question I get. And so I had the same concerns. I'm like every other solopreneur. How can I trust these people? Where am I sending my money? So I, did some research, and it really reassured me. So I'm happy to talk about this. There are 3 ways that you can trust Fiverr. 1, you can trust it because of the market. 2, you can trust it because of the platform. 3, you can trust yourself. And I'll just elaborate a little bit on that. The market piece is that Fiverr is blowing up. I mean, they're going to be a big company. They're going into the future. I heard Micah Kaufman, the co-founder, say that they wanted to be the eBay or the Amazon of professional services. So they're committed to that. And you don't have to just take their word for it, because those venture capitalists who funded them, are saying, hey, we really believe that they have potential and that we're going to get our money back. So if mine's smarter than mine, want to trust them with that much money, I can trust them too. Secondly, the platform. There are so many protections for you on the platform. I actually became a Fiverr seller so I could understand better what happens on the back end. And so you should know that providers get screened. The gigs get reviewed by a real person before they're uploaded onto the site. And if there's any issue with it, they send you a little note saying, fix that first. So you should know that everything is screened before it goes up there. And then the other protection is that you'll notice there are performance indicators on the site. So you can tell what level the provider is, either their new arrival, level 1, level 2, or a top rated seller. If you're new to Fiverr, I'm going to suggest that you stick with a top rated seller or a level 2 and somebody with 4+ stars and over 100 reviews. That way you can really relax and know that this person has proven themselves to be reliable, professional, and talented. And the third way that you can trust yourself, trust Fiverr, is to trust yourself. You know, we all have, pardon the French, bullshit meters. You know when something doesn't feel right to you. So if you're looking at somebody's profile and you just get a feeling like, nope, then no, move on. I have not had a problem where I've selected someone and been wrong when I've gone with my gut.
Excellent. Well, that's some great advice, Dina. We have been speaking a little bit about Fiverr, and I know that you had a story for me where you had Fiverr come in and resolve a dispute. So I was wondering if you could talk about that as a way that people can kind of be comfortable to know that Fiverr would step in.
Yeah, I've done over 70 gigs on Fiverr, and in that time I've only had one opportunity that I needed to use the dispute resolution program, and they actually have a very good one. So let me give you the backstory. I wanted to get a video made because that's a great use for Fiverr. That's something I'm not going to be able to do for myself. And I wanted to choose a new arrival because it's really hard when you're getting started on the platform to get people to select you when you're new. And so, I wanted to mentor a little bit. So I selected the video provider, and we went through the process. I sent my gig request, and she responded. I did the instructions, and then nothing happened. Like a couple days went by, past the delivery time, and nothing. And so I, reached out to her because Fiverr requires that you reach out to the seller first before engaging the dispute resolution program. And basically, she was like, I'm overwhelmed. Got ahead of me. And so she canceled, I canceled, and then Fiverr refunded my money. And what that means when they refund is that you get a credit on the platform. You don't actually get your money back, but you still have that credit to buy other services on Fiverr. Very easy process, simple, and it was done quickly.
That's excellent. Well, I'm glad to hear that. I actually have a situation where I didn't have Fiverr resolve the issue, but I thought that it was a good example of how you can kind of trust Fiverr because you can communicate with these sellers or providers. I had purchased a gig, and it was for a 3D book cover for my new book that launched on Visual Marketing Secrets. And I was so excited to see this book cover. I couldn't wait to make the purchase, and I just clicked through PayPal, done. Okay, great. And I never heard from the seller. Come to realize I wasn't logged in. So I don't even know how Fiverr even processed the whole payment or it just went through PayPal. I don't know. But I contacted the seller myself and said, hey, I wanted to buy a gig from you. Here is my PayPal proof of purchase. Can we get this started? And in a day it was done. So that's awesome. Did you ever contact a seller?
I contact them all the time. It's actually a good thing to do. Before, when you're looking at the search page and the profile page, you'll see on the right-hand side there's a little button that says Contact Me. And if you click through that, you can actually contact the provider. And I do it a lot. Anytime I have a question about how many gigs should I order, or how will you do this, or when can I get it, or any type of question at all, I contact the seller first. Right? And they like that because they don't want you to get in a situation where you're unhappy with what they've offered. Many times you'll see in the gig instructions the person will say, particularly if it's consulting, contact me first before you buy the gig. And that just makes a lot of sense.
Wow, that's great. I never even saw that, actually. So tell me this. What is the best way to do a search on Fiverr? You seem like such an expert in this. I loved what you had to say in the book. How do you do a search?
Thanks. There are three ways to do a search. It's really big site, but easy to get around. So at the very top of the site, there's a regular old search button. And you can put in the keywords in there and search, and it'll bring back a response. Now, what I wanted to mention about that is, you know how on Google it's sort of predictive and it will give you other search terms? Fiverr does the same thing. So when you put in your keyword, it will suggest other things that you should search for, and you should search those because it will broaden the pool from which you can choose. So maybe you're looking for a VA to upload articles. So you write easy, you type in easy articles. It's going to show you at least 5 or 6 different searches that you can do. Do them all. And you can compare back and forth, and you'll know that you've covered just about everyone within that category. The other way to search is at the top of Fiverr, underneath that lovely black band, is the categories that we talked about earlier, graphic design, online marketing, advertising. When you click on one of those, the menu drops down, and then you get a further categorization of things that you can find. So under voice and video, music and audio, you're going to find the voiceovers. You're going to find jingle. You can actually get a jingle made on Fiverr. I don't know if you know that. You have jingle writer. So that you can search from the drop-down menu. And then there's the homepage. When you show up on Fiverr, you land on their homepage. And they're showing the top business services. And so you'll see categories you can click through right away. A new thing that they've just started doing is they have something called featured gigs. And these are featured gigs that people have bought. They're popular gigs, and they're grouped in clusters. So, for instance, Vicki, if you were doing a podcast, that podcasting is on the homepage because it's popular, and they also suggest to you that you want to look at voiceovers. They suggest that you want to look at cover art. So they make it really easy. If you have a general idea, they'll suggest additional searches right there on the homepage for you.
That's great. I actually did had my podcast thumbnail, the thumbnail that you'll see on iTunes and Stitcher, done by a Fiverr vendor. It was awesome. So that's great now. I didn't even know that it was totally on the homepage. That was great. So how long does it take you, the average person, to get your work delivered? And talk a little bit more about that.
Sure. I'll talk about that and the cost because we haven't really talked about that yet. On average, it's 3 to 4 days. Most new providers start at that number. As the provider gets more popular, their queue gets longer, and so the delivery time sort of spools out a little bit. And so my favorite presentation provider now is at 11 days. And that means that when I want to use her, I actually have to plan around that queue to get my work done. And so for that reason, that means I have a couple of different providers in that category when I need to get things done a little bit quicker. When you're on the search page, if you look on the left-hand side, the top filter is a delivery time filter. And so if you said, oh my gosh, Dina, I have to have this done in like 2 days, you could actually move the delivery slider down to 2 days, and it will recalibrate your search to show you only those providers who can deliver in that time. So really, you have a lot of flexibility and control over when you get your stuff. And there are express gigs. So there are some providers who will do your gig in a day. And I had something recently done by a gentleman in South Africa, and I went to bed, and the next day it was in my inbox. So that was pretty cool.
That is pretty cool. So there's really an advanced filter feature that people can take advantage of, just like on Amazon or even on eBay I used to use. You have the drop down where you can be specific about maybe how many stars or how many days you want it delivered in. Is that right?
That's exactly it. They give you a lot of control. I mean, you can decide that you want to limit your search on the delivery time. You can limit your search on the level of the provider. So you might say, hey, I only want top-rated sellers, and then they eliminate everybody else. So you can really pick and choose, and it's a quick way to do the search. Now let's just talk for a minute about the cash, because this is where people are like, hey, it's scam. That's not true. Providers start at $5. If you want everything to be $5, use only the new arrivals, because they're required to have 1 gig for $5. Okay, that's where you want to live. Um, the ways that cost a little bit more sometimes, and the average spend is somewhere between $10 and $50. Still eminently affordable for just about every small business owner, right? So it's very affordable. It can get a little bit more expensive. Fiverr this year in their new version, this is Fiverr 3.0. This is the first time they're allowing providers to ask for, I think up to $500 now. And I know, but the way that happens is through stacking. So the original gig might be $5, but if you want additional services, then it adds on more money. So, for instance, my sales page writer, he will do 250 words for $10. But if you want to have a little bit deeper content on your page, like a full page, at $750, it's $80 to $100 to pay for that. So it's a little bit more money.
Okay, that's great. And I don't really mention this that often. I really don't have a need to, but I'm also a PMP, and I have a project management certification from the Project Management Institute. And one thing that's very important with projects is that you have an activity list, so you know all of the different activities and tasks involved in completing a project, so that you don't underestimate how long it will take to complete the project to get to the completion date. So it's kind of like that, right? So you're dividing up the activities into a list and stacking them. Is that what a seller would do?
Yeah, that is what the seller would do. So, for instance, there's a wonderful woman who does keyword research for your book.
Okay.
And originally it was $5 a keyword, and she decided once she got to level 2 that she wanted to make the decision that you could only search for 7 keywords at a time, and it would be $40. And then if you wanted an additional report on how to use those keywords, that was going to be another gig. That's another $20. So you see how they just sort of stacks on there, and you always have the choice not to get the extra gigs, but you're not going to get exactly what you want. So if your provider is suggesting the other extra gigs, usually I say yes and I get them.
That's great, great. So I want to talk a little bit about technology. I'm actually a tech geek. I love to use Google Drive. Okay, that's something I love to do. And in the book, you have this really, really organized way of creating this collection of providers using Google Drive. So since I love using technology to create systems for business to kind of be more optimized, can you explain a little bit more about how you do this and how someone can do this that's watching today?
Yeah, geeky girls unite.
Woo, I'm a geek.
I'm a geek. So Fiverr has great resources for you, but they do not give you a great interface in terms of staying on top of the providers that you use and love. They have something called the favorites, and so you can favorite people and you can put them in a little category on their platform. And that's nice, except that you have to go back to their platform every time and search around. I prefer to actually just take the providers that I love and put them into a Google Sheet. Right? I put in who they are, their URL where I can find them again, notes about what we talked about, and then what they provided for me. So that, if I love that header designer, I'm going to go straight back to my Google Sheet, find their URL so I can find them right away, and I'll be able to say, hey, yeah, he did those 5 headers for me that way. Yeah, I love his style. I'm using him again. So much easier than having to search through their platform and find the person again. And just on this point, I want to make it clear to folks that putting together a team is a great thing to do. Right? The point is not just a one-off on Fiverr. The point is to put together a team of providers who get to know you, get to know your business, and you get to trust them so that when you have these issues or needs, you're not really searching the platform again. You're going to your pool of pre-screened folks that you already know and trust to work with. And that is really going to just save you so much time and aggravation.
Absolutely, and I'm glad that you mentioned that about the platform, being Fiverr platform where they only save with using the heart. Like if you save a heart as a favorite, like vendor, then you'll have that person to refer to. But I've actually, I didn't have this awesome system that you've created using Google Drive, and I certainly will. I actually started to do that already, but the only way that I was able to go back and see the providers that I had worked with was to go into my inbox and my dashboard. And that's, really the only true way that I was able to find the provider. Otherwise, I'd have to do a search again. So talk to me a little bit about this dashboard and the platform, what people can expect.
Sure. The platform really is easy to use. I mean, you're going to get to a buyer's dashboard, and on the dashboard, it really keeps you up to date on what you've done on Fiverr. And that's how I know I've done over 70 gigs because they track that for me. It will also track your spending, which I don't know if people know that. So if you were like, how much did I spend on Fiverr this year? You could click through the dashboard and it'll tell you not only what you spent, but what you spent it on, which I think is really great for staying on top of the financial side of your business.
That's excellent. I didn't even know that that was available to me, so I have to poke around in that dashboard a little bit more. But I've definitely used collections. I definitely like that feature. So do you have a tip for just the average person to get started using Fiverr?
Yeah, I think that most of us have some sort of graphic need. Then we could use that, make a header on Fiverr. The thing that I'm sort of interested in getting people to do is to do their terms and conditions, because most of us, don't do that. We think, it doesn't matter. But the terms and conditions are the rules of the road, if you will, for your website. And eventually Google will get around to finding out that you don't have them, and then they don't love that. So you want to do it. And that is actually a $10 purchase. So of course you want to do that. If you've written a book or you're going to write a book like we both did, using Fiverr to find your keywords, excellent. I mean, I don't have the time to search around and do that. I found a provider who told me my keywords, told me why they were great for me in the ranking, and then I used them. So behind the scenes stuff like terms and conditions, looking at your keywords, I used a Fiverr provider to speed up my site because it was loading too slow. And when your site loads slow, people click off. So you want to change that right away. In a day, my site was much, much faster. I went from a C, I'm embarrassed to say I had a C, to a B. And so that kind of technical stuff is definitely things I think you could start with easily without a lot of stress.
That's great. And also without a lot of customization. There's no customization in Speed My Site Up.
Nope, not at all.
Right. So I remember we were talking a little bit, getting to know each other about Fiverr, and you had this great story about how people can start using the platform without maybe not even having to do something for their business. You have a little project that involved luggage tags, and that might just be like a really interesting little way for people to get started. So talk to me a little bit about that.
You know what? We're at the holiday season, right?
Yep.
Maybe you want to send your clients a little gift or something. Fiverr is excellent for gifts. In the other category, that's where all the fun stuff is. And so I wanted to give my family some gifts. And so I had their pictures sent into Fiverr and had them turned into caricatures. And then I took those caricatures and I sent them to Zazzle and had them made into luggage tags. You could so easily do that. I have an idea that I want to create a mug for my clients, with a little inspirational saying, shine brightly, somebody needs to see the place you're at. And because that's how I sign my emails to them. I thought, okay, I'm going to have someone on Fiverr create that graphic, and then I'll take it to one of the off sites, make Vistaprint, and have some mugs made. So you can make gifts for clients, you can make gifts for your family. One of the cool things that I heard the other day that someone had a love song written, and I thought, okay, I wouldn't do that, but that's pretty cool. I mean, all kinds of really interesting things.
Yeah, I've seen that too, and that was a great idea. I love that luggage tag idea, and I'm thinking of actually maybe doing something like that myself. So, and that's great to also give people an idea about the fun stuff that they can do on Fiverr without having to worry about wrapping their heads around how they're going to get an idea to do something for their business. So, if people want to find out a little bit more, can you talk to me about any forums where people can find out?
Sure. Fiverr is a community, and they are intentionally building both their buyer and their seller community. So as a buyer, you can go onto the Fiverr platform, and they have a buyer's forum, and you should go in there and tool around and see what other people are writing about. You can actually go into the seller forum too if you were curious about what concerns sellers have. So there are communities where you can get more information and talk to other buyers about, their use of Fiverr. And you should do it because it will make you more comfortable with the platform.
That's excellent. And you also said that Fiverr has a community. They have a blog. How can
Yeah,
people find out more
yeah,
about
you
that?
definitely look at their blog. I read their blog pretty often, almost every day, because it gives you the news about Fiverr, which is how I found out they want to be the Amazon of professional services. They are very transparent about what they're doing and what their goals are, and they really do want to make a large community. It's not one of those companies where they're like, hey, we just want to take your money and run. They're trying to build something, and I really appreciate sort of the thought they put into it. Micah Kaufman said that he really wanted to create kind of a fairy tale where people could leave behind the 9 to 5 and take their hobby and make it into a business, and that really inspired me. So I really want to support them.
Very interesting. And you also had mentioned that you sell on Fiverr. So you moved from the actual buyer to the seller. So can you talk to me a little bit about how somebody can become a seller on Fiverr, or what made you become a seller?
I became a seller because I was curious about how people make money. For folks who don't know, providers earn 4 out of every $5. Fiverr keeps the extra dollar. I was curious about, can you really make money? And that's how I became a seller. And the truth of the matter is, yes, not only can you make money, but some providers actually pay their mortgages from their Fiverr earnings, which is kind of crazy, but possible. It's not hard to become a seller on their platform. You apply to them and decide what gig you want. Now that's the key, because to be successful on Fiverr, you have to pick a gig that's going to be popular, easy to market, and that you can complete quickly, because the name of the game is volume. You want to be able to quickly move through your gigs. And once you figure that out, Fiverr asks you to create a little video. Well, yeah, they strongly suggest you create a little video talking about your gig, and then you just put it up there. That nice person on the Fiverr end reviews your gig and says yes or no, and then you are live. Then it's up to you to go out and market. And that's actually the part that I'm working on now. I'm working on my new book, Yes, You Can Make Money on Fiverr. And so I'm working through what it's like to be a Fiverr seller, how to market, how to use my network to get more gigs, and I'll be talking about that in the book. But I strongly recommend that folks figure out if they have a gig. Now, if you're a service provider but you don't have a product and you're like, what can I do? Put your book up there. I have my book up on Fiverr. There are lots of providers who are offering checklists and worksheets and those kinds of things that are something you probably already have on your hard drive that you created for something else that you could repurpose as a gig for you on Fiverr.
Okay, so that's interesting. So if you put your book up on Fiverr offering worksheets or checklists, are they something that's associated with the book itself?
I actually put the book up so that somebody could buy the book through Fiverr. I think I took it down because I was doing another edit, but yeah, then what happens is you buy the book and I upload the PDF to you and you get it. Same thing with the checklist. And I think that's a really easy way to get started. Something you
That's
already have on your hard drive, throw it up on Fiverr, promote it a little bit and see what happens.
That's wonderful. So you've gone from buyer to seller. You've helped us all today feel how we can trust Fiverr a little bit more, maybe get some ideas on how we can use it for our business and make our lives easier, do what we love, and farm out the rest. That's great stuff. So if people want to reach out to you today, how can people do that?
I would love to answer any questions about Fiverr. I am on a mission to get everyone to use it. And so I would love to have you visit me at my website, infoproductdoctor.com. If you're interested in getting the book, The Essential Fiverr's Buyer's Guide, good for you because it's the first and only book devoted to buyers and teaching them how to harness the power of Fiverr. You could find that on my website, which is infoproductdoctor.com/Fiverr guide. And Fiverr is Fiverr.
Yes, that's great. Sometimes I go to type it really quickly and I put two V's. I don't even know why I do that. I have no idea, but that's great. So it's Fiverr, and I'll definitely be checking out that website and sharing that when I put this podcast up live. It's going to be going live next week. It'll be episode 53, and you can find that on saywowmarketing.com/episode 53. Don't do it yet. Only after November 11th. That's when it'll be live. So, do you have any more afterthoughts for me today?
Yeah, I guess I would like to leave folks with an idea or a thought. Is that we all have something to share in the world, and we share it with our clients who are near us, but we can actually impact others across the world. And so, in using Fiverr, I think that when I use Fiverr, I'm bettering the lives of someone another land that I don't even know and making their life better, and they're doing the same for me. So I'm hoping that people will see the value in using Fiverr and try it. Try it one time.
Absolutely, and it's interesting that you say that you're bettering lives of people all over the world because I know that Fiverr is completely international. I've had vendors from all different corners of the world.
196 countries, baby.
Woo, my goodness, I think that's more than the New York City Marathon recently. I think it was 94. Huh. So it's been wonderful having you today, join us, Dina. Thank you so much. I look forward to talking to you more.
Thank you, Vicky. A pleasure to be here, and I really appreciate what you're doing for your listeners.
Thank you so much. So check out saywowmarketing.com, and slash iTunes would be the podcast and my show on iTunes. And I look forward to seeing you. Smarter Online Marketing Podcast. Take care now. Oh, one more thing. I want to get a photo of us. Quick. You take a look in the screen. Because, of course, I'm visual marketing, so I have to do
Can you do
everything.
it that way?
Yeah, of course. Just give me a smile. Woo woo.
Yee.
Wait, I've got to get your voice up. Say something.
Oh, say something. Hey. Hey, everybody. I love Vicky.
There we go. Okay, cool. Thanks.
Wow, I would never have known you could do that. We're still live, right?
Yeah, I know. I just
Okay.
wanted people to see that. I always got my iPhone in my hand. And why not end on this note? Pretty cool.
Very cool. I'm going to try doing that next time. Thanks.
Good stuff. Take care.
Take care.